We're going to talk a little bit about vaccines in backyard poultry flocks. There's a lot of misinformation out there, so I'll just tell you what I know so you can make a decision for what's right for your flock. So the big ones, there's more vaccines that you can get, but really, unless you're a big-time breeder or something, you're not really going to be concerned about it for just your average backyard flock. So the big ones are Marek's, Coccidiosis, and fowl-pox. So Marek's first. The vaccine for Marek's you really need to get at hatch, and so unless you're ordering chicks from a hatchery or you're buying from someone who's already vaccinated them, once you have your birds home, there's probably no point in getting the vaccine done. Your birds could have already been exposed. It's very common and very contagious disease. The vaccine simply prevents symptoms. It does not prevent the birds from getting the disease or shedding the disease or being contagious. So that is the big stink about it, is people would argue, well, your flock could be contagious and you don't know it, or which is true. So it's kind of a hit or miss, but the pros would be that if your flock was infected with it, you wouldn't lose all your birds. Actually, I have a mix of both. If I happen to buy chicks at Tractor Supply or somewhere, I'm sure those birds are not vaccinated, so I do have birds in my flock that are not vaccinated. If I order from the hatchery, I go ahead and pay the extra 10 cents or quarter or whatever it is per bird and get them all just vaccinated. And so that's Marek's disease. It causes paralysis, weight loss. They get like this funky gray pupil. And then the next big one is Coccidiosis. And again, that's going to be a vaccine that you get at hatch, probably from the hatchery, because once you have your birds home, it's really not an issue with older birds. It's more of an issue with your young chicks. Once they hit the ground, they're exposed, and you can either get them vaccinated for Coccidiosis or you buy the medicated feed. You don't do both because you'll nullify the vaccine if you feed medicated feed, because they need to be exposed to build up immunity. And medicated feed simply has a little bit of amprolium in it. It's not enough to treat an outbreak. If you already have an outbreak of Coccidiosis, you need to go buy amprolium and give it to them to knock it out, and then you can still give the medicated feed after, just to help them build immunity. And older birds don't generally get it unless they get really stressed or something, but if you see bloody poop in your baby chicks and they get lethargic and start losing weight, like once they start showing signs, you really got to get on it. If your bird goes down, you're probably too late. And quite honestly, I mean, you can treat birds when they get sick and they'll come back, but in my experience, once you get a really sick bird, just those birds never seem to thrive. So really, unless it's a favorite bird, you're almost best just to call. I hate to say it, and you probably don't want to hear that, but that's just the truth. Because I have treated and saved birds before, and all of the ones that I've done that to, they just never thrive. I can't say it better than that. So again, that's personal choice. You don't have to feed medicated feed. You don't have to get the Coccidiosis vaccine. I mean, if you're really good about keeping your coops clean, if you have a new coop where you haven't had other birds in there before, you're probably fine without it. Just be aware of Coccidiosis and the symptoms and just watch your birds. If you start seeing bloody diarrhea, birds lethargic, losing weight, that would be the most likely culprit, is Coccidiosis. And so from then on in that coop, you would either shovel out all that dirt and put fresh in, or I would just buy the medicated feed because it's in the ground and your birds are going to be exposed. And then the other one that's pretty big is fowl-pox. And that's really only a summer issue. It's spread by mosquitoes. I've never lost a bird to it. They just get these really like lesions, raw lesions, and it just kind of knocks them down. They don't feel real good. They don't lay as good, and it's contagious. So like my boys did 4-H, and we had a bunch of birds. We did a layer project that we're going to go to the fair, and there was a lot of mosquitoes that year, so I went ahead and vaccinated that year because I was afraid that they would come down with it, and I have had it in the flock a couple times go through. And it does work really well. You can give it to them at any time. It needs to be kept cold, and once you open the vaccine, you need to use it within so many hours or throw it away. It loses its effectiveness really quick. So it's like 20 bucks to buy the vial to vaccinate for fowl-pox, but it doesn't really kill the birds, so that's entirely personal choice. Or if you get an outbreak, or you can still give it to them. But those are the big three. And birds do not get rabies. That's a mammal-only disease, so there's no rabies vaccine for chickens. So those are the big ones. A couple other things I thought of. There's currently no vaccine for the bird flu, so hopefully it doesn't ever get your way and your birds don't get it, because you really need to just call your whole flock if you get it and report it. And back to the coccidiosis medicated feed. Medicated feed is just feed that has a little bit of amprolium in it, just enough that your birds build immunity. If you have an outbreak of coccidiosis in your flock, there's not enough amprolium in there to do anything to knock out the coccidiosis. You still need to treat. And there is no withdrawal period. If your layers get into the medicated feed, it's not a problem at all. I think that's everything else that I thought of that I think I forgot.